Ellie.
And Jesse, and this is Design for Adventure.
We're a married couple figuring out family travel, Disney trips, running races, parenting,
And how to make adventures actually work in real life.
Yes, we travel with our kids.
And still manage to have a good time.
And if you love making memories and want an adventure that fits real life, you're in the right place. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are going to talk about one of my husband's favorite topics, battlefields.
Now, as we sit here and record this in about the middle of March, it's really come to be the best time of the year. Not only do you have the NCAA basketball tournament starting up just around the corner. I know the SEC tournament began today. You also have track season starting, and the weather's finally not getting nicer, so we can make it out to battlefields.
We have very different definitions of the best season, apparently.
No. Fall is the best season, but spring is the best time of the year.
Oh dear.
It makes sense if you don't think about it.
All right, so today we're talking about battlefields. One of my husband's favorite thing to do is take the kids to battlefields. And a lot of times he does it without me while I'm working, but I tag along sometimes, depending on where we go. With that, let's get started. So how do you choose which battlefields that you take the kids?
Well, last year, I would just want to see how many we could actually get to. My goal for the calendar year of 2025 was to get to at least 20 different battlefields, and I blew that out of the water. Last year, we made it to 33 different battlefields, and there were even a couple that are fairly nearby that we didn't get to, so that number could have easily been quite a bit higher. But for this year, we're just going to be making trips back to like the bigger battlefields around our area, the ones that we really enjoy going to, instead of trying to hit up every little small one that we can find. So this year will be a lot more selective and just go with the ones that we enjoy.
So usually you go to the ones that are either locations, so it's nearby, or do you pick because it's better maintained?
Well, they're maintained, yes, or more preserved. For instance, like the ones over in the Fredericksburg area, like Chancellorsville, Wilderness, Spotsylvania, and Fredericksburg, they have either a visitor center or some kind of shelter there that will give information about the battle. But then there's also a bunch of like a driving tour with a bunch of stops that you can make. And there's also like hiking trails and stuff that you can do too. So that's why we tend to gravitate towards that area, just for those bigger battlefields that are better preserved and have more things to do.
Not all of our listeners are obviously going to be living here in Virginia with access to so many battlefields, the Civil War battlefield specifically. How do you find out which ones have just more, I guess?
Well, the National Park Service has a great website that gives a lot of information about what is at each battlefield and what things you can do. And they have a calendar also for different events that are going on at each battlefield too. So I'd recommend checking out the National Park Service website. Another good way to think about it is if you have heard, for someone that's like not a Civil War aficionado, if you've heard of the battlefield, then it's probably a pretty big one, and there's been a lot of efforts to save that land. So yeah, if you've heard of it, it's probably going to be a pretty good one to go to.
I'm thinking like Gettysburg, yeah. Shiloh.
Antietam, yeah, all those, excellent places to go to.
So you mentioned the events. Have you done any of the events? I think you did one with our son, with one of the battlefields.
Which one are you thinking of?
Oh, you've done multiple events? Wasn't there one where the cannons they
Yeah, that was down at Appomattox last year because it was the 160th anniversary of the surrender. Our oldest son and I went down. He was 4 at the time, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's kind of a funny story. That's thinking of these stories. I mean, this is all about like building memories with your kids. So, and this is something I always cherish because they did a really cool production where they had cannons that were pulled by horses, and the reenactors were riding the horses and riding on the cannons. And they were going to unlimber the cannons in the middle of a field and then fire them. And I told our son, hey, this is going to be loud, and like you're going to feel the concussion from it in your chest when it fires. So let's try to stand a ways away from everything. So we went down like past where everybody else was standing, and we were like in the middle of off to the side, like in the middle off to the side of the field. And they pulled those cannons all the way up, like parallel with us. So there's 3 cannons. And I asked him, I was like, hey, like, this is going to get loud. Do you want to move? He said, no, it's okay. So yeah, they limbered him up, unlimbered him, and they started the one that was furthest away from us fired first. And he looked up at me and said, that wasn't too loud. And then the one in the middle fired next. And he looked at me and said, that was louder. And then the one right in front of us fired next, and he started crying. Poor kid. Now, and he'll deny that. He thinks he's a tough guy. He'll say, I didn't cry. But he absolutely did for a few seconds.
So maybe bring sound canceling headphones if you're going to some kind of reenactments and you have younger children.
That'd be a good idea.
Definitely take a look and see what kind of events are going on, because that's always fun when you do have reenactments, even the cannons, even just they're shooting their rifles. It also can be interesting, especially for young kids, to see that. That's not something they get to see every day. So that would definitely be a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely, because that's what got me started in being interested in the Civil War in the first place. There was a town near the town that I grew up in that did a reenactment of the Battle of Pea Ridge every year. And my mom would take us to that and watch the reenactment, and it was always a special treat because she would let us to get an old, like, I think it was like an old-timey root beer that, I don't know, it didn't taste like any other root beer I've ever had. It was delicious. So we always look forward to that every year.
What do you do when you go to a battlefield with the kids? I see like 1 or 2 pictures because you never take any. So I actually really don't know what you do with them when you're there.
Oh, we do everything. But it depends on what's at the battlefield. So if we go to Chancellorsville has a great visitor center. You can go in, you can talk to a park ranger if you want to, but then they have it's almost like a museum that you can walk through, and it talks about the Battle of Chancellorsville, but also Wilderness and Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania also, like the 4 big battles that were fought in that area. So we always check out that museum. And it's great because they have a little diorama of what the Chancellor House looked like at the time of the battle, because during the battle, it got destroyed. And now one of the stops on the driving tour is at the Chancellor House, where only the foundation is left. So I love that because our son's able to look at it and see what it looked like at the time of the battle. So we always check out visitor centers, or if you're at like Wilderness or Spotsylvania, you check out the shelter that talks about the battle. And then, just drive around or drive the tour, and the park rangers will hook you up with a driving tour map. You can stop at all the stops, and there's always like hiking trails and walking trails too that you can check out. And honestly, what I'd like to do last summer, my oldest was still on his Strider bike. We would pack the Strider bike with us and then ride it around the walking trails, because Spotsylvania is really good for that. There at Bloody Angle, there's a great walking trail. So he would get on a Strider bike, and I would have our youngest in a stroller, and we'd go for a nice walk.
I think I've also seen a lot of pictures, and when I say a lot, I mean like 2 pictures of them playing in the dirt in front of cannons with some construction trucks.
Yeah, I won't lie. That happens a lot too. I mean, Civil War is a complicated topic, and it doesn't hold the attention for real long, especially with a 2-year-old. So yeah, they play in the dirt a lot. They do like the cannons, so they play around the cannons too. But it's nice because it gives them something to do while I'm, reading the whatever there is to read at each site. So it works out well.
And you just brought this up because they're both young. They're 2 and 5 right now. How do you explain the whole concept of the war, the Civil War, and everything about that to both of them?
I don't get too much into like causes or what they were fighting about. I don't get into any of that at all, actually. They're just too young for all that. So what I would say at the beginning of last year, because then things kind of changed, was I would say that it's, they're playing a game of freeze tag. So you have guys in blue over on this side, and you have guys in gray over on this side, and they're trying to tag each other. And if somebody gets tagged, you have to lay down and you don't play anymore. So that's how I describe it.
Very simplistic.
Oh, yeah, he's 4. I mean, what do you want me to say?
But I know he's actually really good. He can name a lot of the generals now in the Civil War. So how did you get him in doing that?
Well, I should finish what I was going to say there before you gave me a dirty look about that happened. I will say that as he's gotten older, like I said, he's 5 now, and he's had some experiences with death, whether it was with bugs that he has tried to keep as pets, and they don't last very long. But then also more of a real world experience, with your grandma passing away last year. So he has a better grasp of what like death is. So I've been more realistic with him, not like describing like how people died there, because that's the way it would be bad for him. But just saying, yeah, I mean, these guys, if they got tagged, then yeah, they're dead. There's no coming back from that. War is a pretty horrible thing. And he seems to be okay with that. So, but to your next question, it's crazy. He just has a really good memory because when we're at these different battlefields, I'm always telling him about, okay, Robert E. Lee was the general for the Confederates and for Chancellorsville. Joseph Fighting Joe Hooker is the general for the Yankees. So they're the ones that are squaring off against each other. But then right underneath Robert E. Lee, you had Stonewall Jackson, and he got hurt here. And that's why that monument is right behind the visitor center for him, because that's where he got hurt. So yeah, it's just me talking about what was going on at the battles, who was there. And it's strange because he's kind of taken an interest in their horses. Because when we go down, Lexington, Virginia is an awesome place to visit. And you can go to the museum at the Virginia Military Institute because Stonewall Jackson was a professor there before the war. And they now have his horse named Little Sorrel. After Little Sorrel passed away, they stuffed it and it's now in the museum. And he just thought that was the coolest thing to see Little Sorrel. And then right across, just on the other side of campus basically is Washington and Lee University, where Robert E. Lee is buried. And they have his horse, Traveler, buried there also. So for some reason, the horses have just stayed in his mind.
He can name several of the horses, and I'm like, I guess that's right.
Yeah, because he likes Lookout too, and that was Fighting Joe Hooker's horse after the Lookout Mountain battle. But then there's another one called Fire Eater, and he really loves that one for some reason. Well, I think for obvious reasons, it's a cool name, but I can never remember whose horse that was.
He knows more about Civil War than you do at this point.
About the horses, yeah.
Obviously, you talk to him when you're at the fields, but do you do any preparation before you go to the battlefields? I remember when we were first dating and first got married, you'd make me watch some battlefield videos before we would go somewhere like Shiloh.
Stones River.
And Stones River, yes. So do you do that with him at all?
No, that'd be so far over his head. When we do go to like Fredericksburg or Chancellorsville, where they have the visitor center, there's always a video that they play about the battle there at the visitor center. So we've watched that before a couple times actually. And next time we go to Antietam, we need to watch that video. I heard they just made a new one. But he has a couple Civil War books that are full of pictures of like what the battlefields look like now. If I know that we're going to be going to a specific battlefield, like when I put him to bed a couple nights beforehand, we'll start looking at those pictures and reading about places to go on the battlefields. So that's kind of how we prepare.
I know he keeps trying to get me to read those books to him at night, and I'm just like,
why don't you?
Like, that's a daddy book.
Yeah.
Because I have nothing else to tell him except what exact words are in those books, and even then, I'm like, I don't know. Civil War is not.
I usually don't even read the words in the books. I just tell them stories that I know. Yeah.
I was like, let's talk about Disney, kid. Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you stories about Walt Disney. So how do you keep them from getting bored?
That's a good question because like the big battlefields that I've been talking about, like the ones over in the Fredericksburg area, they are like an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes away from us. So it's a bit of a haul for one person with two like young kids. So I like to, pack lots of toys, pack lots of snacks. So if anybody starts getting antsy in the car on the way over there, hand them a new toy. And I keep them in a bag up in the front with me. And like we talked about earlier, so that works out pretty well. And then usually, they're both falling asleep on the way home. So the drive home is usually pretty easy. But while we're at the battlefield, our 2-year-old, she's really accommodating. She's just kind of along for the ride. She just does whatever we do. And all she wants to do is whatever her big brother does. So if he's playing in the dirt next to a cannon, that's what she's doing. And if he's listening intently to some, astute fact that I'm saying, she's listening intently too. But I do make sure to pack, like the monster trucks and the construction trucks so they can play in the dirt while I'm reading things.
But when you are planning to go to some of these battlefields, I know you do a little bit of research and you already know a lot about some of these battles. But do you plan anything special because of them? Like planning, skip maybe one area and go to another because you think they'll find it more interesting, or do you just do what you want to do and bring them along for the ride?
No, I pretty much just do what I want to do and bring them along for the ride. And that's why planning it ahead plays a big role in it because you need to have stuff for them to do to keep busy. And that's where, like, you bring in the construction trucks and the monster trucks so they can play in the dirt while I'm doing what I want to do. And I mean, even when we go to museums, I mean, they do really well. I mean, our little one, she just rides in the stroller and points at things that she wants to hear about, so I can talk about those. And then our oldest is going around and looking at the pictures, and I mean, they do really well. So, but yeah, it's pretty much I just do what I want to do and kind of try to accommodate them in the process.
And I say we do take our kids to museums, not a lot, but they're not strangers to it.
Yeah.
So the first time you go into a museum, yes, you probably need to teach your children just, I want to say museum etiquette. You can't just touch some stuff, and we still have to teach both our kids to do that.
Keep a close eye on them.
You do need to keep a close eye on them, but there's a level of trust, when they're allowed to like kind of wander away from you and look at things. I think our oldest really enjoys that level of freedom a little bit.
Yeah, and I just remembered this. That time we went to Appomattox, we went to the museum there in the town of Appomattox, and they had a little program where you could create your own battle flag. And holy cow, that held his undivided attention for like 45 minutes. So he sat there and created battle flag after battle flag after battle flag while I was able to actually walk around and enjoy the museum. So that was really cool. And then another place where that happened was at the Sailors Creek battlefield. They had a nice little visitor center there, and they had almost like a sand pit full of like little Civil War figurines, so you could like set up your own battle and played with that for a long time too. So I had the opportunity to walk around and enjoy the museum.
And that's another tip too. He does have little army men, and you can buy them in some of the gift shops, the Civil War ones specific. Yeah, he does love them, and he's taken those too with him. So that's if your kid might be interested in those and playing with them out in the fields while you're reading the signs and stuff too. That's probably something that might be able to help engage their interest for a few minutes. So you have the time to read some of the plaques and other signs they usually have out on the fields.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I do know some of the pictures I get from you are from lunchtime. So you do some fun stuff with them when it comes to lunch.
Yeah, I mean, I like to pack like a picnic lunch, and we have specific spots on each battlefield that we like to go and eat at. But yeah, we just throw down a blanket, and you have to prepare in advance. You do easy like picnic type stuff like peanut butter and jelly, and I don't know, meat sticks, cheese sticks, apples, oranges, just typical picnic type food. And just make sure you have a blanket and throw it down on the ground. You can sit there and eat. And we do have, like I said, a specific location at each battlefield where we like to eat. And I don't know, it's kind of funny to me because like at Chancellorsville, we always eat at the Lee Jackson bivouac. I can't say that word because it's a nice flat open area. But then when we go to Spotsylvania, we always eat at the parking lot at Bloody Angle. And then when we go to Fredericksburg, we like to drive down to the slaughter pen and eat there. So it's not lost on me that we're having picnics at like Bloody Angle and slaughter pen. I think, like the guys that fought there would be, I think, happy to see that their efforts were not in vain and that land has been preserved and that people are taking advantage of it to enjoy it now.
There is a reason why we preserved a lot of these battlefields. And I think people using it and you taking young kids to explain it is the whole purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Passing it on to the next generation.
That's how you got started, was your mom taking you. Mm-hmm. And now you're taking our son and daughter.
Yeah. So like, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about, I love just getting outside on beautiful spring or fall days and enjoying the scenery, enjoying the weather, and then making these memories with our kids. Because there's a lot to get out and see. And some of my favorite memories, we talked about like the cannon incident at Appomattox, but then this is also a good trivia question. The first time I took our son to go visit Stonewall Jackson's arm, Because trivia question, did you know that his left arm is not buried with the rest of his body?
I did know that, but only because I'm married to you.
Yes, his body is buried in Lexington, and his left arm is buried on the Wilderness Battlefield. And when I told him, "Hey, you want to go see Stonewall Jackson's arm?" He's like, "Yeah!" Like just super excited. And we pulled up to it's at, I think it's called the Elwood Manor or Mansion or whatever. And it was closed to vehicles. They had the gates closed right at the pull off the road. So we had to walk into it. And it was probably close to a half mile. And this whole time he's like, "Where's Stonewall Jackson's arm? Where's Stonewall Jackson's arm?" And we finally get to it. And it's just like a headstone that reads, "Here lies Stonewall Jackson's arm." And just the sheer disappointment on his face, because I think he was actually hoping to see like an arm sticking up out of the ground. So yeah, just the sheer disappointment on his face that was merely a headstone. And then you had to walk another half mile back to the car, just all mad at the world. That was pretty funny.
Sorry.
Yeah. And then a couple from when we went to Gettysburg, he and I went up there for a boys' trip. If you go to the top of Little Round Top, one of the monuments up there, is almost shaped kind of like a castle, and it has a windy staircase with very narrow and oddly shaped stairs. And as we were walking down it, he lost his footing and like tumbled down 5 stairs to get to the bottom. And I'm thinking, "Oh crap!" And I ran down to him, and I knelt down. He's kind of whimpering. He wasn't crying, but I asked, "Oh no, are you okay? I'm so sorry. Are you all right?" And he goes, "I'm fine." And he looked up and goes, "Did you record that?"
Better than "I'm okay."
Yeah, right.
Which is normally what he says when he falls down.
Yeah. And then, but the one that he still brings up to this day there at Gettysburg, we were hiking Pickett's Charge, and just past the Virginia Monument, there's a really big mud puddle, and we saw a bunch of tadpoles in it. So of course, I mean, he lost all interest in the hike at that point. It was only solely focused on the tadpoles. And nearby there were some like tiny yellow flowers that were blooming. So he picked them and he threw that into the mud puddle, and the tadpoles just like swarmed it. And that just made his day. And he still talks about that. How, "Do you remember when I fed the tadpoles at Gettysburg?" And he was just so proud of himself that he was able to provide those tadpoles with, I don't know, a little meal, or if they were just playing with it or whatever. He thinks they were eating them, and he was very proud of himself that he was able to feed the tadpoles at Gettysburg. So yeah, it's all about making those memories and getting outside and enjoying nature.
He also likes to run through those fields yelling "charge."
Yeah.
He's done that for me a few times. So a few times I've gone with you guys.
Yeah, he likes to do that at the Newmarket battlefield, where the VMI cadets, charged the cannons. And then I got a video of him doing that there, like General Lou Armistead at Gettysburg also. Yeah, Pickett's Charge.
So if you are planning a trip, maybe you're coming out east, maybe you live in the area or live somewhere near a battlefield, don't be afraid to go and take your kids. You can really make it a fun afternoon, morning, all day event. Just, you have to provide a little bit for them to do and play outside. Don't be afraid to take them into the museum. They might learn something. Something might stick where they learn this horse's name and now they know 4 horses' names or even more about all the generals. Our son loves to go around and talk about Fighting Joe Hooker. So,
which kind of terrifies us when he goes to school, because we're afraid he's going to be talking about a hooker.
I don't know what his teachers hear. So
yeah,
we'll find out maybe one day. Definitely go and do it. You may be surprised. Maybe your child gets really into the Civil War or history. And there's more than just Civil War battlefields. We have the Revolutionary War too, which we have a few. They're a little bit farther from us because they're more towards Yorktown.
Mm-hmm.
But
when we lived out west, we went to a lot of like Native American battlefields too.
Yes, so there's more than just the Civil War. So if you're just still trying to make a history, maybe you're just trying to do a day where you're trying to get a little bit more education in because the kids are missing school. So you're just trying to not feel guilty about it. Don't be afraid to go to one of these places. Go talk to the park rangers. They're full of information and they love to help.
And if all else fails, just make sure you pack stuff to play in the dirt with. Kids just love that.
Construction, trucks, and dirt.
Yep.
Every kid's dream, even the little girls.
Yep.
So I know my husband is a huge Civil War buff, but even for those who maybe don't know as much and you still want to, go or try one of these battlefields or museums, go. Like I said, the park rangers are really informative and can give you a lot of information. And even if you just end up doing a driving tour or just going to a few of the spots, it's still a really fun time and your kids may end up loving it. All right. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Design for Adventure.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're following the show and leave a quick review. It really helps more families find us.
You can also find us on Instagram at Design for Adventure Pod and Facebook at Design for Adventure.
Until next time, don't be afraid to get out there and have an adventure.